So we are in the context of discussing the Mahayana Sutra of the three Heaps, the Bodhisattva's confession of the downfalls. In general, we can classify the teachings of the Buddha in three baskets, the three Pitakas. The first one, you can say, is the Pitaka of the hearers, which is mainly comprises of text composed in Pali language. The second one is the Bodhisattva Pitaka that contains text composed in Sanskrit. And finally, we have the secret tantric basket or Pitaka. And according with this threefold classification, we also have three different classes of vows. We have the vows of individual liberation, the Bodhisattva vows, and the Tantric vows. And all of us who have received Jenangs, initiations, and so forth, of course, have the Bodhisattva vows. And in the case of initiations, also, we have the Tantric vows. And therefore, it is very important that we have a means for purifying those, because it is possible that we are not capable of keeping them properly. Rinpoche was saying that he had the chance to catch some teachings in the internet on regarding the Bodhisattva vows and the Tantric vows that you had, and these are actually very important subjects to study. In terms of our pratimoksha vows, if there are some transgressions, then we can purify those by means of a ritual. In terms of the bodhisattva vows, if there is any breaking or decline of the bodhisattva vows or other types of negativities and obscurations, we can purify those with the confession of downfall of the bodhisattvas. Isn't it? So we can see that this particular sutra is actually, this text is very important, not only in Tibetan, it is also very popular in Chinese. Finally, when we come to purifying transgressions for the tantric vows, we use a lot Vajrasattva meditation and recitation of the 100-syllable mantra that you're all very familiar with. So we talk a lot about the bodhisattva vows. When we assume the bodhisattva vows, we assume them in the presence of Buddhas and bodhisattvas. So Buddhas and bodhisattvas become the witnesses of our promise. And in their presence, we say, I promise to bring about the benefit of all sentient beings. So this is a very big promise. If we are capable of acting in accordance with this promise, if we are capable of keeping up this promise, of course, there is incredible benefit and virtue that is generated for that. But if we go against this promise, because it's a serious promise, again, the negativity that we create is very serious. The bodhisattva vows and the tantric vows have a lot to do with what is going on internally in your mind, with the way that you're thinking. So to give you an example, you could be sitting in a sofa, relaxed for an hour. So physically, verbally, maybe you're not creating, you're not doing anything wrong. However, during that hour, you could be having a lot of different thoughts. And whether or not those thoughts are appropriate or in accordance with the vows you have, if they are not appropriate, if they are not compatible, then you could be going against your vows and you could be breaking your vows whilst you're sitting there relaxing for an hour. And therefore, for this reason, it's difficult to maintain these type of vows. As we mentioned, we have accumulated negativity and obscurations since beginningless time in samsara. And in order to address this situation, we have to apply some purification that relies on the 4 opponent powers. So we talk about the bodhisattva vows that we all have taken. And also in the case of highest yoga tantra, we assume the tantric vows. And now it is explained to us that this type of vows, they're very dangerous. They're very scary. So one might be thinking, well, if this is the case, maybe it's best if I do not take those vows at all to begin with. But the answer to this is no. It's actually, although there is great danger of breaking these vows, it is actually very good to take them, because merely by requesting and taking those vows, we place very important imprints and we receive great benefit in our mind. And as we say, there are many methods that our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, out of his great compassion, has given us in order to purify any transgressions to those vows. So particularly with the Hatha Yoga Tantra vows, we have the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva. We can do Vajrasattva recitation and meditation. And we have here, for example, the confession of downfalls for the Bodhisattva vows. So although there is, as we said in the last teaching, the Buddha himself said, yes, there is fault, there is negativity. However, he didn't stop the presentation at this point, because if he just said, yes, you have faults, you have negativity, it would sound almost cruel to the students. But he went ahead to say, there is fault, there is negativity, but there are this and this and this and this method that you can employ to purify them. The Buddha actually taught a great variety of methods that disciples, according to their capacity, according to their interest, according to their predisposition, they can find which one is most fitting and rely upon that. And the other thing is that, okay, we keep saying, the danger of breaking them and so forth. However, if you are able to keep your tantric vows without breaking them for a series of 16 lifetimes, it is said that even if you do not put a lot of effort in meditation, you will achieve Buddhahood within that time frame. So that's great benefit. So in particular here, we refer to this method of purification that uses the recitation of the names of the Tathagatas as the antidote. And of course, it combines it with the 4 opponent powers. Now, if we, excuse me, if we want to look at some stories related to that, we have the story of no other than Je Rinpoche. At the age of 36 or 35, Je Rinpoche entered retreat according to the instruction of Venerable Manjushri. And when he first entered retreat, his first question was, okay, so what do I do first? And Venerable Manjushri said to him, first, you have to purify negativity. And he did that by offering 100,000 prostrations to each one of the 35 Buddhas. So he offered that incredible amount of prostrations. And then we have this verse that describes the result of this practice. And it says, as a result of engaging the ritual of the 7 limbs, you directly and constantly saw each one of the Tathagatas. So in this particular case, the line that says, by engaging the ritual of the 7 limbs, the ritual of the 7 limbs is referring here to the confession of downfalls with the prostration to the 35 Buddhas, because this text actually includes the 7 limbs as we know them. So as a result of this practice, Je Rinpoche has continuous, like uninterrupted, continuous direct meeting with the 35 Buddhas. Okay, so as a result of engaging in this practice of purification of downfalls, it is said that the life of Lama Tsongkhapa increased, and also he was able to really support the spreading and the expansion of the teachings in a great way. And from that point onwards, that particular practice was considered to be very very important, very crucial in both of these aspects. Now, it is very important to pay attention into one detail. When you happen to see a tanka or a small picture or perhaps an arrangement of statues of those 35 Buddhas, you might notice that there are differences. And it is not to say that this tanka or, this representation is wrong and this one is correct. What we have to understand is that basically, we can talk these days, we can talk about three different main styles of representing the 35 Buddhas. So prior to Je Rinpoche, the system was that each one of the 35 Buddhas looked completely different from the other. So the colors, the mudras, what they were holding, the hand implements, some were holding sun, some moon, some were holding a fruit. So there was great variety. Basically, each one was a different figure. After Je Rinpoche, we notice that there is homogeneity in the aspect, the expression, the colors of the 35 Buddhas. There are, of course, some exceptions, such as, for example, the king of the Nagas, who has a blue body up to the neck, and then it has a white head. And then later on, there are a couple more that have different colors. They break up the color scheme, let's say. But other than that, their mudras and sitting postures and everything else is uniform. So that is a second system. And we also have a third system where the 35 Buddhas take the aspects of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So we say that this particular, let's say, way that Lama Tsongkhapa practiced became quite famous, and it spread. It became very popular. And we see that Lama Tsongkhapa actually had a close connection with Le Dorje, Karma Dorje. They had a connection of teacher-disciple with each other. And then Le Dorje on one occasion asked Je Rinpoche, tell me, what do you think is the best method for purification? And then Je Rinpoche explained to him the method he followed for the confession, doing prostrations to the 35 Buddhas through the confession of downfalls. And following his advice, Le Dorje also practiced for 6 years, 4 sessions a day, performing 900 prostrations on every session to the 35 Buddhas. And at the end of this practice, he made the comment and he said, I have tried many purification practices. However, this one, this particular method of with this visualization relying on the confession of downfalls is really special. It's really unique. We said that there are 3 different styles, and the third style is where we can find the 35 Buddhas resembling the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So if we take the group of 35 and divide it into 5 groups of 7, right, we will have 5 groups. So we take the first group of 7 to have aspects similar to Buddha Akshobhya. So whatever is the sitting posture, whatever is the color, whatever is the expression of Akshobhya, we take those 7 Buddhas to have the same aspect. Then we take the next group of 7 Buddhas having the aspect of Vairochana. Then the next 7 having the aspect of Amitabha. The next 7 having the aspect of Radnasambhava. The next 7 having the aspect of Amoghasiddhi. And this, in this way, is actually quite easy to memorize the visualization. And you don't even have to go into the details of the hand implements, just the posture, the color, the expression. Okay, so As we say, we have this opportunity to purify negativity through relying on this sutra of the confession of downfalls. You can actually prostrate to the 35 Buddhas, or you could just recite the sutra without prostrating. Again, it will act as a means of purification. But what is most important when you engage in this practice, if you commit to this practice, is that you choose something that will be convenient and it's easy for your mind to handle. And the easiest of the systems of the visualization is the one where we take the 35 Buddhas to look like the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So, as we say, the first group is going to be the group of 7 that have the aspect similar to Akshobhya. Now, this group has the aspect of our teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. So the sitting posture is exactly the same, and it will have one head. All these figures have one face and 2 arms. From the 2 arms, the left arm is in the posture of equipoise, and the right arm is touching the earth. Okay, so it's exactly as the posture of our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Now, in terms of Akshobhya, of course, we say there can be many variations of this deity. So you could have aspect of the deity with 3 faces, with multiple arms. It might have consort and so forth. But here, forget about all this. Just think, it has the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni. In this particular group, there are only 2 figures that break up from from the model of Akshobhya. The first one is our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. When we visualize our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, he has his own particular color, which is the golden color, and he's the one that is like on top of that group. And then the second one that variates is the Tathagata of the king ruling the Nagas. We already mentioned him. His body is dark blue and the face is white. But apart from this, all the Buddhas, all the 7 Buddhas in the first group, they are dark blue in color, sitting like Shakyamuni Buddha, one face, 2 arms, the left hand in equipoise, the right hand touching the earth. Okay, so the way that we arrange the first group, as we say, first of all, we have the throne of our teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. He's on top. And then underneath him, we have 6 thrones. And this is the first group of 7. Therefore, the 6 have the dark blue color. Okay, then after that, we have the group of 7 that have the aspect of Vairochana. Okay, so Vairochana, so we have all 7 in a row, and Vairochana is white in color, and Rinpoche showed the hand mudra of Buddha Vairochana before. Then yes, that's the one. Okay. Then we have the group of Ratnasambhava. They are yellow in color. The left hand is in the mudra of equipoise, and the right hand is in the mudra of supreme generosity. So the palm is facing outwards. Then we have the group of Amitabha that is red in color, with both hands in the mudra of equipoise. And finally, we have the group of Amoghasiddhi that is green in color. The left hand is in equipoise, and the right hand is in the mudra of giving fearlessness. All right, so in this way, we have the rows. First of all, we have Buddha Shakyamuni, that is golden. Then we have 6 that are blue. We have 7 that are white, 7 that are yellow, 7 red, and 7 green. Okay, so we mentioned here that we perform prostrations. So it is important to understand that there are different types of prostrations. In the Paramita Sutras, there is a mention of Shono Norsang, where he's given the advice where he says, prostrate with the full length of your body touching the ground. So this is one type of prostration, what we usually refer to these days as the full length prostration. And sometimes it is described in the text like the trunk of the tree falling down the ground. So the entire length, you stretch the entire length of your body down on the ground. That's the first type of prostration. There is also mention of prostration where the 5 limbs of the body touch the ground. And this is what we refer to as the half prostration or the short prostration. And besides these 2 types of prostrations, of course, there are many different other modes of prostration. For example, when we recite different parts of the ritual, when we repeat for vows and things like that. There is another type of prostration. It is actually these days you can see it quite a lot in India. It's a traditional India way of prostrating where it's like you are bowing in front of the feet of the object of your prostration. If you have been to India, you have certainly seen this particular body gesture. Also, this is the type of prostration that is assumed by the monks when they participate in the Sojong ceremony. Now, the teachings of the Buddha have spread in many different areas. And for example, when the teachings spread to China, they develop a particular flavor. So there's a particular way of doing prostrations according to the Chinese tradition. To do this practice, just assume whichever type of prostration you are most familiar with and you know how to perform it well. So don't feel that you have to conform to some other type of prostration because other people are prostrating in a different way. Whatever prostration, whatever type of prostration you know, you understand, you can do well, then this is the one you should rely upon. So in terms of prostrations, we have physical prostration, verbal prostration, and mental prostration. Physical prostration is any expression of your body that indicates respect coming out of a sense of faith. So, for example, even if bringing the palms of the 2 hands together, because in your mind you have faith for that particular object towards which you show respect, that bringing the 2 hands together is considered to be a prostration. So prostration doesn't necessarily mean that your head has to touch the ground. In various countries and in various traditions, there are many different ways of physically expressing respect towards the other person. So all of them are considered to be a physical prostration. Verbal prostration is to speak of the good qualities and praise a particular person or object of praise. And thirdly, mental prostration is to have faith. However, Rinpoche was saying, in general, the types of prostrations that we are most familiar with and the ones that we employ the most are the short prostration, where 5 limbs of the body touch the ground, and the full length prostration, where you stretch your whole body into the ground. So Rinpoche would like to explain those 2. So just to look at the etymology of the term prostration, we're looking at the Tibetan term. The Tibetan term is chak-tsel, so 2 syllables. The first syllable, chak, refers to the good qualities of the object of your veneration. There's someone that you respect, and that person, that being, has qualities. So the first syllable, chak, refers to the qualities of that being. The second word is the word tsel, which means I seek, I desire. So me, who I'm showing veneration to you, who I'm prostrating to you, I desire to have the same qualities as you do. The qualities that I admire in you, I would like to have them myself. May I acquire these qualities. So this is the meaning. It is also related to this idea of wishing. So, for example, when we talk about bodhicitta, when we say, I wish to obtain the state of Buddhahood for the sake of sentient beings, so wishing to obtain certain qualities. So just to summarize, we talked about prostrations and we said that there are different types of prostrations. So any expression of respect externally, physically, with your body, when you have faith motivating you, is considered a physical prostration. Any expression of eulogy or praise or talking about the qualities of the other being is considered to be verbal prostration, and having faith in your mind is mental prostration. So, for example, with great faith in your mind, you could be verbally reciting this particular sutra of the convention of downfalls, and at the same time, you could be physically performing prostrations. Now, in terms of the different types of prostrations, we mentioned we have the short prostration of the 5 limbs touching the ground. We have the long prostration with the full body stretching out on the ground. And we also have the prostration of touching the feet. With your hands touching the feet of the object of your veneration. As for the etymology, the breaking down the term chak tsel, the Tibetan word for prostration, it means I wish to obtain the same qualities that you have. Now, when we mention prostration here, we associate this. We said that even putting the palm of your hands together constitutes an act of prostration. Okay, so when we do that, all right, we don't join the palms, but what we do is we tuck the thumbs in, and in this way, when we bring the two thumbs together, there is like an opening. You can see there is an opening. So externally, it looks like an orbu, it looks like a jewel, but the jewel inside has an empty cavity. So this is a representation or reminder of us of the union of method and wisdom. So method here is represented by the jewel, and this could be compassion, but inside the empty cavity represents emptiness. It represents wisdom. Now, we can go even deeper than that in the symbolism of bringing the two hands together. It is particularly beneficial and it's of great importance when we bring the two palms together at the level of our heart. In Tantra, one of the most important features of the practice is that we strive to bring all the winds together into the heart. And wherever the mind goes, the winds will also go. And all the realizations, the high realizations we will develop along the Tantra grounds and paths and so forth depend upon gaining control and gathering the winds at the heart. And therefore, bringing the two palms together actually symbolizes that this is what we want to achieve with the practice of Tantra. We will not go into further detail on this because this is a tantric subject. So once we make sure we have the right positioning of the palms of the hands, which we say they are not flat together, but they have a cavity, which is formed by bending your thumbs and creating the form of a jewel. Then the first position that we place the heads is at the crown. Now, it can be like a closed, I'm going to go down a little bit. It can be like a closed jewel, or it could be a little bit more open. However, sometimes you see people where they put the tip of the crown towards the back, right? Okay, so this is a mistake. So it has to be straight. If you put it to the crown, it has to be straight. Okay, so that is the first position. The second position is the forehead. The third position is the throat. And the fourth position is the heart. Or you could simplify this, excuse me, and omit the crown and instead just have the forehead, the throat, and the heart. So when you place the palms of your hand at the forehead, you are placing the imprints to obtain the body of the Buddha. When you place it in your throat, you obtain the imprints to obtain the speech of the Buddha. And when you place it at your heart, you place the imprints to obtain the mind of the Buddha, that is the omniscience of the Buddha. When we place the hands at the crown of your head, we are creating the imprints to obtain the crown protrusion of the Buddha. So from amongst the different marks and signs, the one that is the most difficult to establish is the crown protrusion. So by placing here the hands here, we are creating imprints for obtaining this. When we place the hands in the forehead, we place the imprints to develop the curly hair that the Buddha has between the two eyebrows. And then when we place it here at the throne, we have the imprint to obtain the speech, the melody of the Buddha, and at the heart to obtain the omniscience, the omniscient mind of the Buddha. Okay, so now when you start prostrating, make sure that you start by standing up with your whole body in a straight position. Don't be kind of like half benched over already from the beginning. No, sit completely straight. Your starting position is a straight posture. And in that straight posture, also the two legs and the 2 feet should be close to each other. So don't stand with your feet apart, right? So that's not the correct posture. Okay, so whatever we're going to say here about the posture, like you understand, if you are a person who is sick, if you do not have good balance, if you are old and so forth, if you cannot sit straight and so forth, of course there will be exceptions. But if you are a healthy individual who can stand straight, then your beginning position is with a straight body. Now, we mentioned there are 2 different types of prostrations, the main ones. The first one is the half or the short prostration, where 5 parts of the body touch the ground. These 5 parts of the body are the forehead, the 2 palms of your hands, and the 2 knees of your legs. So these 5 parts, all of them, they have to touch the ground. Sometimes you see people attempting to do the short prostration and the forehead doesn't touch the ground or the knees do not touch the ground and so forth. So these actually are not proper prostrations. They are not considered the proper prostrations. Okay. When we do the full body prostration, as we say, the full body, we have to stretch it and you lay down on the ground. Okay, so the whole front of your body is touching the ground. When you do this and you reach down on the ground, do not spread out the fingers of your hands like this. Instead, keep them together. Also the feet. The feet and the hands have to be neatly together. This actually has significance. Between the fingers and the toes of our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, they're little webs, they are flesh, skin that connects the fingers. And just to create the auspicious interdependence that we also develop this feature, we keep the fingers and the toes together. Also, when we reach down the ground, make sure that your let's say that you don't keep your hands curled up in a fist, right? The hands have to be fully stretched out, just as the whole body stretches out, so the hands stretch out, and the same thing with your legs and your feet. And if if you're doing a lot of prostrations and you become tired, and it comes to the point where you do, let's say, your last prostration, and you don't have much energy for anything more, do not remain lying down there without rising from your last prostration. Remember that the prostration is an expression of respect. So with your physical, your verbal, your mental activity, you're showing respect for someone. So imagine that someone that you have respect for entered the room and you just remain lying there, right, without rising. Okay, it would be inappropriate. It's not an expression of respect. And therefore, make sure that when you do your last prostration, you also rise up. And when you rise up and you have that straight body we were talking about. All right. If you need to have a break from your prostrations, do the last prostration you can, rise up, go to another place, another location, have a rest, and then come back in your prostrating location and resume your prostrations. Again, if you're old or sick and so forth, understand that this do not apply to you. Just make exceptions. But if you're young and capable, please abide by these rules. The other thing is that once you're prostrating, remain focused on your prostration. Do not look right and left outside the window. Do not begin talking to others. Do not follow the conversations of others. If you're doing just a small number of prostrations, such as 3 prostrations, usually there is no danger of becoming distracted with that. But if you're doing many prostrations, as here in the confession of downfalls, because it takes much longer time, we become tired, we become distracted, there will be some noise, some commotion, people talking outside your window or nearby, and you will turn around and look, or you will listen to their conversation. So then there is a real danger for this type of distraction. So you have to be aware of it. When we look here, the way that we can perform prostrations whilst reciting this particular sutra and the names of the 35 Buddhas, we see that there are 3 different ways of doing the recitation and the prostrations. So these 3 different ways are mentioned in the text Liberation at the Palm of Your Hand by Pabom Rinpoche and edited by Trijang Rinpoche. So in that, we understand that in this practice, we actually engage the 7 limb prayer. And when we come to the point of where it says, I prostrate, we bring the palm of the hands together, but we actually do the prostrations at the limb of confession. Okay, so how do we do it? As we said, there are 3 different ways. One way is to recite the entire sutra, starting from the beginning to the end, however, and then, uninterruptedly, and then go back and repeat it from beginning to end, repeat it from beginning to end, and do your prostrations. So if you look at the text, where it says, always I go for refuge to the Guru, I go for refuge to the Buddha, and so forth. That's the beginning of the sutra. So you read the whole sutra, all the names of the Tathagatas, and you come to the very end of the sutra where it says, with folded hands, I fully go for refuge. So from beginning to end, uninterrupted. The second way is to only prostrate when you do the names of, when you recite this section with the names of the 35 Buddhas. So if, let's say, you want to accumulate 100 prostrations during that particular recitation, that means that you will have to repeat this section of the names 3 times. Okay, and by doing this, you will accumulate 105. So you wanted to do 100, but you're doing 105. Okay, and then once you finish this, the 3 recitations of the names, you continue with the remaining of the sutra, which says, all of you, 35 Buddhas and others, as many Tathagatas, Arhats, and so forth, to the end of the sutra. Now we come to the third way of doing the prostrations and the recitation, which is said to be the way that Rinpoche did this particular practice. So here, especially if you're planning to do a big number of prostrations, let's say you want to do 100,000 prostrations. So then you have to divide and you say, okay, how many prostrations I have to do per Buddha? So let's say you come to the number that you have to do 1,000 prostrations per Buddha. So you remain repeating the name of that Buddha. So let's say we start with the first one, to the teacher, the Bhagavan, the Tathagata, the Arhat, the perfectly completed Buddha, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni Buddha, I prostrate. And you repeat this 1,000 times, and you're making prostrations. And only after you finish the 1,000 prostrations that you have allocated to Buddha Shakyamuni, you then move into the second Tathagata, and then again you repeat that name as you make 1,000 prostrations just to that name. So it is said that this is the way that J. Rinpoche accumulated 100,000 prostrations for each one of the 35 Buddhas. Okay, so we keep talking about making prostrations, but we have already mentioned that if you recite this sutra, just the simple recitation without the physical act of prostration, as long as the 4 opponent powers are complete, then that can become a method of complete purification, right? It doesn't, but if in addition to that you have the physical aspect of prostrations, it's even better. Okay, so as we said, there are 3 ways. Either you do the whole sutra from beginning to end and you repeat it as many times you have allocated, or you repeated just the names of the Tathagatas, the whole block of the names of the Tathagatas, to make up however many prostrations you have decided to do, or you stay with the name of each Tathagata 100 times, 1,000 times, however many times you have decided before moving to the next. Okay, now there are some who say that you must do at least a minimum of 35 prostrations when you recite that particular sutra of the Confession of Downfall. So Rinpoche says this is not true. Actually, how many prostrations you do is completely up to you. It depends on your body, on your health, on your capacity, at the time that you have available. You can actually begin by offering 3 prostrations at the beginning, and then just continue to recite, just recite the text without making any further prostrations. Just put the palm of your hand together as you do the recitation, and that will be sufficient. But as we say, it is more powerful if you do the physical prostrations. And in every situation, such as, for example, with our work environment or business and so forth, we're always looking for what has the biggest advantage, what is the most beneficial, what is the most profitable, and so forth. So definitely, if you can put in prostrations, if you can fit in the physical prostrations, that will be very good. But there is one thing to identify what is the most beneficial. And the second question that you have to ask is, yes, but do I have the capacity to do this? Can I do all of these prostrations and so forth? Okay, so as we say, you have to decide for yourself. You have to make a choice here for yourself. The most important thing is to make sure if you have faith in this practice and you want to do it, the most important thing is to have the 4 opponent powers. So first of all, the power of the basis, which is refuge and bodhicitta. The second one is the power of repudiation, where you are regretting whatever negativity you want to purify. If you regret it, you will make the next one, you will have the next power, which is the power of restraint, because you will be thinking, I don't want to do this again. And then having these three, the first three in place, put the palms of your hand together. We explain how beneficial even just this simple gesture is, and recite the text. Now, most of the people, most of you, at least in the beginning, when you're not familiar, you will be reading the text. You will be needing to read the text. If you have memorized it and you're just reciting it, it is easier to prostrate along with that. Okay, so Rinpoche would like to conclude by saying that if you are not familiar with making many prostrations, the first thing to try to protect is your knees. So, for example, applying cream, we have like not face cream, but hand cream. You can put it on your knees, and it will have a protective effect. So make sure you cover the knees in some ways. Okay, I would like to speak about the benefits of prostrations, and there are many other topics like this, but today we're running out of time. So we're going to conclude by summarizing. So we begin by talking about prostrations in relation to this particular sutra, the Bodhisattva's Confession of Downfall. It is in particular emphasized with the Bodhisattva Pitaka as an excellent means of purification for our Bodhisattva vows, and of course other types of negativities and obscurations. It is a very important practice. We see that Master Shantideva in Bodhisattva's Ways of Life, as we mentioned in the first session, says that 3 times a day and 3 times a night you should prostrate, offering in accordance with the ritual of the 3 heaps. That refers exactly to this particular text. Also, if we want to look at Master Atisha, who is the origin of all the author of the original Lamrim text, from where all the other Lamrim texts have developed, said that we must perform this practice of prostration to the 35 Buddhas in the morning and in the evening on a daily basis. And if we look also at the example of Jai Rinpoche, we see with how many what incredible effort he put into this practice of purification, where he amassed, or he offered 100,000 prostrations to each one of the 35 Buddhas. Remember, there are 3 different traditions in terms of representing or arranging the images of the 35 Buddhas, and the easiest for us is the one where we have 5 groups of 7, where within each group they all have similar aspect and color and posture and so forth. So the other thing that we mentioned today is that we are motivated by faith in our mind, and moved by this faith, any physical expression where it's an expression of humbling ourselves in the presence of another is considered to be a prostration. So any physical posture you assume where you make yourself smaller, so where you bend your body and so forth, is considered to be a prostration. There are different types of prostrations, the full-length prostration, the short prostration, and so forth. Whichever type of prostration you want to do, it is very important to understand and do it in a proper way. In the various sutras and the commentaries of the words of the Buddha, as well as all the previous lamas, we have plenty of explanation and examples to fully understand how to properly do prostrations. So very important to understand, first of all, how we put the 2 palms together. And then from that point, we say that we have an option of touching either 4 places in the body or just 3. Then if we perform the prostration with the 5 the short prostration, 5 parts of the body, which is the forehead, the 2 palms, and the 2 knees, absolutely must touch the ground. So if you start avoiding touching the ground because you notice it is dirty, it is not swept, it doesn't have a carpet or something like this, then this is not a proper prostration. When you do the full length prostration, obviously the full front of your body will stretch out on the ground. But remember, you're not doing, when you finish the prostration, you have to rise up in good time, because you should not remain in the lying posture. So very important that the 3 aspects are all engaged. So we have faith in the mind, and then with our speech, once we have that faith in the mind, perhaps we can recite the refuge, or in this particular case, we are reciting the confession of downfalls, and then we follow this, we accompany this with physical activity of prostration. Again, remember that if you are sick or if you are old, there is always exceptions, and you should take your physical condition into consideration. It doesn't mean you absolutely have to attempt to do many prostrations. The Buddha always made exceptions for the sick and the elderly. But whatever prostrations you do, whichever way you engage the practice, the important thing is that your body and your speech and the mind remain focused on the practice. Don't start looking right and left. Don't become distracted with conversations and listening or observing what is happening around you. Okay, the other thing to remember is that there are 3 different ways of accumulating the numbers of prostrations. You might do it by beginning and doing the recitation of the sutra from start to finish, and then going back and repeating that until the entire sutra from beginning to end, until you accumulate the numbers that you want. The second way of doing this is repeating the block of the names of the Tathagatas, the 35 Tathagatas, as many times as it takes. And when you're doing this repetition, this is when you do your accumulation of prostrations. And then when you finish with the names of the 35 Buddhas, then of course you have to keep repeating to recite to complete the remaining of the sutra. And the third way is to stay with the name of one Tathagata and repeat this until you accumulate whatever numbers you have in mind. So the first Tathagata we know is Buddha Shakyamuni. Let's say you have decided, I want to have 3 prostrations for each Tathagata. So you're going to say, I prostrate to Buddha Shakyamuni, I prostrate to Buddha Shakyamuni, I prostrate to Buddha Shakyamuni. That's 3 times. Or you might want to do it 7 times, or you might want to do it 21 times. Whatever is your number, you just stay with the same Tathagata until you complete the number. Then you move to the next Tathagata for the same amount of number. So this is how you accumulate your numbers. And then when you finish with the Tathagatas, of course, you have to repeat to recite the remaining sutra as well, to complete the sutra. Okay, so this is for today, and in our next class, what we will do is that we will explain in relation to each particular Tathagata, there is purification of specific negativity. Okay, because there is a lot of information, it's going to be a list of 35. It would be very good if you kept notes on those things, whether you keep note on your phone or a piece of paper, or whether the center can organize and we have a list that is already given out to people. It's a lot of information to memorize or keep in mind or be clear about it. But if you keep notes, then you will have the information and be organized. Okay, so that will be for our next class.